Sweet. All right, great. Okay, well, welcome. I'm Scott Larsen, integrative chiropractor, Institute for Health and Healing. I practice in San Francisco, and today I'm going to talk about walking. It is the culmination of a movement series that I did to restore the fundamental human movements, and it kind of all comes together with the walking movement or the gait. Walking is a learned skill. It's not inherited. We don't come out of infancy knowing how to walk, and when we learn to walk, it's through trial and error, and we have to be trained. And so without correct assistance, walking can be challenging, and walking upright is also considered trial and error. When you go through all these different angles of motion and the body moves in different areas, coordinating all these different parts of the body together is a very complex learned trait. And our walking patterns aren't acquired until we're about 7 to 9 years old. So prior to this, there's a lot of neuromuscular experiments that a child goes through to learn how to control their body. And by about 10 years old, most kids are able to walk correctly and do really well with it. And then that gets lost. And if you drive or walk out onto the street, you'll notice a lot of people have unique walking patterns, and everybody has their own walking pattern. It's kind of like a fingerprint, and a lot of them are dysfunctional. So when you have a dysfunctional walking pattern, your improper body alignment, your improper posture can become a concern. And then your also things like your occupation, the activities you engage in, the environment you live in, your body type, your age, your past history of injuries and surgeries, all that stuff play a factor into creating an environment that can be maladaptive and cause problems for you. And posture alignment and walking are one of those things that can be manually or voluntarily controlled. So it's so cool. If you put a little mindfulness or pay attention to how you walk and how you sit, how you hold yourself, you can really make positive changes to your health. And as a chiropractor, I help people improve their posture, alignment, walking patterns, movement patterns, whatever it is, in terms of kind of this whole genre through osseous adjustments or manipulations, muscle reflex techniques, different stretches and exercises I'll advise people on. Which types of therapeutic exercise will be the best, intense, low intense, et cetera, et cetera. And so all these things can be part of your kind of overall picture. So the body can balance itself. There's two states of balance. There's a passive and an active state of balance. So when your body is basically using muscles to keep it upright, that's more of an active thing. And when your body doesn't have to engage a lot of muscle groups, even in a standing position, that can be a passive balance. And your balance can be altered as you come off your center mass. And so walking can be considered kind of a series of falls. So you start to topple over and then you catch yourself, and that pattern is considered walking. Now, it's not ideal. If you're just toppling forward and then catching yourself, it's not a good way to do it. But the thing is, that's kind of, I think, the lowest cost of energy for humans. And so we, as maybe intuitively or whatever, we learn to walk with the least amount of energy possible. So we basically topple forward and then we catch ourselves, and then we topple forward again and catch ourselves. And that's not ideal. You want to be more proactive with your walking. You got to keep in mind that we're all different. And for example, our heads weigh different pounds. The head of a 200-pound man can weigh 15 pounds easily. And then you add helmets or glasses, even hats, those types of things alter our balance, our equilibrium, and they all play a factor. So you don't want to topple forward. You want to be more proactive with your walking. And so the basic mechanics of the gait cycle are two. There's a stance phase, and that's where the foot is in contact with the ground. And then there's a swing phase, and that's where the foot is moving through the air. And the stance phase is where most of the injuries and most of the issues come from, and it's the majority of the walking cycle. So 60% of your walking cycle is in the stance phase. So that's where you're going to be weight bearing, and lots of stress can go onto shoulders, necks, low backs, hips, knees, ankles, feet. And so the stance phase is super important to try and optimize. You've got a heel strike, so your heel strikes the ground, then your foot goes flat, and then you push off with your toe. And ideally, it's your big toe. And so you're going to strike with the outside of your heel, roll along the outside of the foot, and then you cross the metatarsals, and you push off with your big toe. So that's the ideal. And then you have the swing phase, and this is a little bit different, but it's kind of cool. You basically have this initial acceleration of the phase where your foot starts to swing, and then you have a mid swing, and then your foot comes down and smacks on the ground. And this can all be optimized. Most people, though, need to optimize their stance phase, the heel strike, the foot flat, and the toe push off. Your body also oscillates, so it kind of swings. So think about a pendulum in your local museum of natural history or something. Your body is like a pendulum, and it operates kind of in a figure eight pattern, but there's considerable movement across the whole body when you're walking. So it rotates, it goes up and down, your pelvis shifts side to side 4 to 6 inches, and it goes through this whole motion that's really cool. Your hips sway back and forth, your knees flex and extend, your ankle flexes and extends. It also swings and rotates. Your arms are supposed to be swinging on a cross crawl mechanism. So as your right arm swings forward, your left foot is in the stance phase. And also your spine is rotating and going through a number of motions that allow you to walk forward. So the reason I'm going over this is I want to make it clear that walking is not just falling forward. You have this really elegant pattern of movement. Everyone's an individual as well. Your weight plays a huge factor on how you walk. And as we go through life, when you become an adult or when your bones reach maturity, let's say at age 18, and you go through your life, your weight's going to change. You may not get taller, but your weight will definitely factor in. And when you learn how to walk as a child and then optimize that through your teen years, and then if you gain weight through the next couple decades and you don't practice your walking, it's going to be a problem. The height of a person changes, so if you're shorter or taller, that's going to affect the way you walk. Lots of times, taller people kind of stoop, and shorter people will try and stand up a little straighter. That's a generalization, but it holds true for a lot of people. Some people develop military postures where the spine's really straight, and that can affect the way you walk. Going through pregnancy can affect the way you walk, and then coming out of pregnancy, things can be permanently changed. If you have shoes that alter your walking, like heels or even loose fitting shoes, a lot of times people, for example, a little tangent here, if you're standing in one place or standing at a standing desk because you think that's a healthy thing, which I agree it probably is, but if you're standing for 8 to 10 hours a day, blood ends up pooling in your feet, and it can alter the size of your shoe. And it may not give you a bigger foot, but it may require you to loosen up your shoe. And so all of a sudden, let's say, example, you get a standing desk because you've been waiting for that because you want to help your back pain, and then you stand for 8 to 10 hours a day and blood starts pooling in your feet, so you have to loosen up your shoes, or maybe you have to get new shoes that are looser fitting. That's going to change the way you walk. It's all an interesting factor that really individualizes all the differences we have. So even the surfaces we walk on, hard surfaces, soft surfaces, concrete, asphalt, grass, all of these can change our walking patterns. So everybody's gait is going to be a little bit different. As you have issues that come up in your life, the role of like your chiropractor will help you determine what is natural, what's unnatural for you. And like you could have unilateral tight low back. So let's say the right side of your low back is really tight. That's going to change the way your walking pattern is. Your brain's going to have to adapt to that. I would say maladapt to, like, let's say a tight back. And that's going to stiffen up your limbs. It's going to maybe stiffen up a shoulder because you have to exaggerate a shoulder swing to get your other leg to come around. Maybe you're limping and you start to develop knee stiffness. And then your walking gait, which is, again, the most fundamental form of human movement as an adult, becomes biomechanically challenged. And then your health can get compromised. All because, let's say, you stand at a standing desk, your shoe size changes, you start pulling, you get some blood pooling in the lower extremity. You have to change the way your shoes fit. You start changing the way you walk. Your low back tightens up. And then it's off to the races with musculoskeletal issues that can affect your life. And let's say walking isn't comfortable anymore, so you stop walking and you stop moving and you live more of a sedentary life. And the effects, so that's a scenario. There's a million scenarios that can affect the stress of walking, but walking becomes a major stress. It leads to a lot of suffering. So here's how to correct it. One, get a visual. Okay, you have to get a visual of how your walking pattern is. I would say, in the age of everyone having a phone with a camera on it, please have somebody take your phone, hold it there. You're going to walk down a hall, walk down a sidewalk, and then come back. Preferably something that's pretty even, so you don't have to change your elevation very much, or going up and down a slope is not a good idea. And I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing this on a treadmill, but you can. If you have easy access to a treadmill, you can walk. But the reason I don't want that is because I want you to walk away to look at yourself from the back and then walk towards you, looking at yourself from the front. Look for your hip swing. How much are your hips swinging? So you got to look at your belt, basically, and try and see if it looks symmetrical side to side. The other thing you want to look for is your feet. Do they look even? And you're going to intuitively know if they're not. You don't need to worry about what all the technical terms are, but look and see if they're even or not. The other thing you want to look for is your arm swing. Do your arms swing evenly? So get a visual. Your arms, are they swinging correctly? Do they look even? Are they moving with the opposite foot? As your right arm comes forward, your left foot should be forward. Okay, that has to happen. 2, what are your hips doing? Are they swinging side to side? And then 3, what are your feet doing? Do they look pretty even? So you get a baseline. Then here's your first drill. 100 steps a day, walking on an even surface, and you got to make sure you're doing the cross crawl walking, which means your left arm and your right foot are forward at the same time, or your right arm and your left foot are forward at the same time. So cross crawl 100 steps per day on a flat surface. Then once you finish that, you're going to try to practice another 100 steps using your glute muscles. And here's how you do it. You can roll your foot from heel to toe. So you're rolling it kind of like an upside down rainbow. And while you're going through that sweeping motion, you're going to be squeezing your rear end together. Okay? So take a step, foot strikes the ground, you're squeezing both of your glute muscles together. Okay, and that's going to propel you forward as you push off. So 100 steps a day with the glute squeeze, and 100 steps a day making sure you're doing proper cross crawl walking. And that's it. If you want to use your glutes a little bit better, you can walk up a hill. Okay, so if you have easy access to a hill or a treadmill with incline, a couple miles an hour incline, or walk up a hill 100 paces. But the reason I don't necessarily want you to start there, if you're a beginner and trying to fix your gait, is that can affect your knee, and you can recruit some of your body in a potentially maladaptive way. Like you jet your head way forward, you stoop your posture to get up the hill. So that's a potential for me, but I would like you to do it on a flat surface if you can. So that's walking. It's the most important thing. Walking can heal a lot of your musculoskeletal issues if you're doing it correctly. And if you're not doing it correctly, you can hurt yourself. It's a sad irony.